The crystalline chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a pulsar that painted everything in shades of purple and silver. Inside, 5 species sat in a circle that had remained unbroken for 3,000 years. They called themselves the Hierarchy, and they ruled the Galactic Council with absolute certainty. Counselor Thexkar of the Mordani rose from his seat. His scales caught the light as he activated the central display. A small blue world appeared, spinning slowly in the holographic projection. "Earth," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "For the 7th time, they have refused our invitation to join the council." Around the circle, the other counselors shifted, some with interest, others with irritation. "Their representative was quite polite about it," offered Counselor Yishra of the Centauri. Her silver skin shimmered with emotional resonance. Ambassador Park explained that humans prefer to observe before committing to any alliance. Thexkar's eyes narrowed. Observe? They are children playing with technology they barely understand. They have developed faster-than-light communication, yet they refuse to share it with civilized species. They cited ethical concerns, Yishra reminded him gently. Something about preventing military applications. The Mordani counselor laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "Ethics? How convenient. They hide behind pretty words while they hoard technology that belongs to the galaxy." Commander Zrel of the Vaknoth military caste stood next. He was built like a weapon, all sharp angles and dense muscle. His species had been the Council's enforcement arm for 1,000 years. "The Hierarchy granted Earth 7 opportunities," Zrel said. 7 chances to join civilization peacefully. They have made their choice clear. I propose a compliance operation." The term was familiar to everyone in the chamber. Compliance operations were how the Council dealt with stubborn species, a show of force, a demonstration of power. Then integration into the galactic community, willing or not. "Details," commanded Thexkar. Zrel touched his wrist device. The image of Earth expanded, showing orbital platforms and surface military installations. Red markers appeared across the planet. "We deploy 200 warships, 50,000 soldiers. We disable their orbital defenses in the first hour. Major population centers will be occupied within 3 days. We extract their communication technology and establish a transitional government within 6 weeks. "Casualties?" asked Counselor Brevin of the Korthi, a species that resembled crystalline trees. "Minimal on our side. Perhaps 10,000 humans if they resist foolishly. Standard for operations of this scale." Yishra felt something cold move through her empathic senses. She reached out, trying to touch the distant emotional echoes of Earth. What she felt made her pause. "I sense something unusual about these humans," she said carefully. "There is a complexity to them that our analysis may not capture." Thexkar waved a dismissive claw. "Your empathic readings are not evidence, Counselor. We have analyzed Earth's military capabilities thoroughly, nuclear weapons from their primitive age. Conventional armies that would be laughable against plasma weaponry. Scattered orbital platforms with no coherent defense network. They have been in space for barely 200 years, added Counselor Vrem of the Hakori. 200 years. Some of us have lived longer than their entire space program." The chamber filled with clicking sounds that passed for laughter among several species. Yishra tried again. "I simply suggest caution. Humans are unpredictable in ways our models may not account for." "Every species thinks they are unique," Zrel said flatly. "Every species believes they will be the exception. We have performed 47 compliance operations using this exact strategy. 47 successes. Earth will be number 48. The vote was called. One by one, the counselors gave their approval. When it came to Yishra, she hesitated. "I abstain," she said quietly. Thexkar looked at her with something like pity. Your compassion honors you, counselor. But sometimes civilization must be firm. These humans need guidance. They need structure. We are helping them. The vote passed. In 6 months, the invasion fleet would launch. Across the galaxy, in a modest office on Earth's orbital station, Ambassador Ji-hoon Park sat reviewing the Council's latest communication. It was polite. It was firm. It was exactly what he had expected. "They will come," he said to his assistant, Seo-jun Chen. "Are you certain?" Ji-hoon nodded slowly. "The Council sees only what they want to see. They look at our military and see weakness. They look at our ethics and see naivety. They have conquered 47 worlds, and every one of those worlds fought back with weapons. And we won't? We will resist," Ji-hoon said carefully, "but not the way they expect, not the way they have trained to counter." Seo-jun looked at the data streaming across her screen. Projections, scenarios, war games that all ended in Earth's military defeat. "They outgun us completely," she said. "If we fight conventionally, we lose. Millions die. Our cities burn." "Yes," Ji-hoon agreed, "which is why we will not fight conventionally." He pulled up a different set of files. Studies on nonviolent resistance. Historical examples from Earth's own history. Gandhi, King, Mandela, Havel. Movements that changed nations without firing a shot. "The Council has never faced an enemy that refuses to be an enemy," Ji-hoon explained. "They have protocols for military resistance. They have strategies for guerrilla warfare. They have contingencies for every type of violence. But they have no plan for what happens when we simply reflect their actions back at them." "You want to shame them into leaving?" "I want to show them who they really are," Ji-hoon corrected. "The Council believes they are civilized. They believe they are bringing order to chaos. We will hold up a mirror. We will force them to see the truth of what they are doing." Seo-jun was quiet for a long moment. "This could fail. People could die anyway." "People will certainly die if we fight their way," Ji-hoon said. "At least this gives us a chance. A chance to win without becoming what we are fighting against." 6 months later, the Vaknoth fleet assembled at the edge of Council space. 200 warships, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. 50,000 soldiers, trained for conquest, ready to add another world to the Council's collection. Admiral Kortnax stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue marble of Earth growing larger on the view screen. "Prepare for combat," he ordered. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. Shields activated, weapons charged, fighters launched in defensive formations. Earth's orbital platforms detected them instantly. Kortnax waited for return fire, for missiles, for desperate last-ditch weapons. Instead, every human communication channel opened simultaneously. A single message, broadcast on every frequency. "We surrender. Please do not fire. We will cooperate fully. Please do not hurt anyone." Kortnax stared at the message. In his 1,000 years of service, he had never seen anything like it. "Admiral?" his tactical officer asked. "What are your orders?" The Admiral felt the first whisper of doubt. This was too easy, too strange. "Proceed with landing operations," he said. "But stay alert. This could be a trick." The fleet descended toward Earth, and Kortnax had no idea that he was about to learn a lesson the Council would never forget. The landing craft touched down in Seoul's Central Plaza just after dawn. Commander Zrel expected chaos. He expected resistance. He expected anything except what actually happened. A delegation of humans waited at the landing zone. They held no weapons. They wore formal business clothes. At their front stood a woman with silver hair and a calm expression. "Welcome to Earth," she said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Prime Minister Hye-jin Kang. We are prepared to cooperate with your occupation. Please, follow me. We have prepared facilities for your forces." Zrel studied her face for signs of fear or anger. He found only polite professionalism, like she was greeting tourists instead of invaders. "You surrender?" he asked, suspicious. "We broadcast our surrender before you arrived," He-Jin replied. "We see no purpose in causing unnecessary death. You have superior military force. We acknowledge this reality." It was too simple, too clean. Zrel had conquered worlds where the populations fought to the last defender. He had seen cities burn rather than submit. This calm acceptance felt wrong. "Show us your military command centers," he demanded. "Of course, we have prepared complete maps of all government facilities, infrastructure systems, and communication networks. Your translators have already received the files." Zrel checked his datapad. The files were there, detailed beyond anything his intelligence had gathered: building layouts, security codes, power grid access, everything. "Why would you give us this?" he asked. He-Jin smiled sadly. "Because you will take it anyway. This way, perhaps fewer people are hurt in the process." The Vaknoth commander did not know how to respond. He had trained for resistance, not cooperation. His protocols had no section on enemies who helped you occupy their own planet. "We have assigned your main force this building as headquarters," He-Jin continued, pointing to a large structure at the edge of the plaza. Zrel looked at the building, then looked again. His translator confirmed what his eyes were telling him. "This is a children's hospital." "Oh." He-Jin's hand went to her mouth. "I apologize. There must have been a translation error in our files. We can find you another facility immediately. Perhaps the government complex 3 blocks north?" Zrel understood the game immediately. Refuse the hospital and look weak. Accept it and occupy a building full of sick children. Either choice made him look like a monster. "The government complex will be acceptable," he said through clenched teeth. "Excellent. I will have staff guides ready within the hour." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In New York, Vaknoth soldiers marched through streets expecting combat. Instead, they found millions of humans simply standing there, not fighting, not running, just standing, silent, watching. The soldiers pushed through the crowds. The humans moved aside when forced, then closed ranks again behind them. No violence, no weapons, just bodies, filling every street, making movement nearly impossible. Every action was recorded, thousands of cameras, every rough push, every harsh word, all documented and broadcast immediately across human networks. In Lagos, Dr. Minji Okafor approached a Vaknoth checkpoint with a medical bag. The soldiers raised weapons. "I am a doctor," she said calmly. "I have medical supplies and food. You have traveled very far. You must be tired and hungry." The lead soldier, whose name was Krev, stared at her in confusion. "You bring supplies to your occupiers?" "I bring supplies to people who might need them," Minji corrected gently. "You are far from home. Your supply lines are stretched." "This is a simple kindness." Krev had fought on 12 worlds. He had seen hatred in 1,000 faces. He had never seen an occupied population offer food to their conquerors. "This could be poisoned," he said. "It could be," Minji agreed. "But it is not. You may test it if you wish, or simply accept that some humans still believe in treating others with dignity, even in difficult circumstances." She set down the supplies and walked away. Krev stared at the packages for a long time. Finally, he had them tested. They were exactly what she claimed: food, medicine, no tricks. That night, he could not sleep. The woman's face haunted him. The simple kindness haunted him. This was not how wars were supposed to work. Admiral Kortnax reviewed reports from all landing zones. Technically, the occupation was proceeding perfectly. Every objective secured, 0 casualties, complete human cooperation. So why did he feel like he was losing? "Sir, we have a situation in Mumbai," his communications officer reported. Kortnax pulled up the feed. Thousands of humans sat in concentric circles around a communications hub. They were not protesting, not chanting, just sitting, silently, peacefully. "What are they doing?" he asked. "We ordered them to disperse. They refused. But they are not being violent. They are just sitting there. Send troops to move them." "Sir, our soldiers are requesting clarification. The humans are unarmed. Many are elderly. Some have children. Our troops are asking for rules of engagement for moving non-violent civilians who are simply sitting down." Courtnax realized the trap. Force them to move, and his soldiers would be seen dragging grandmothers and children away from a peaceful protest. Ignore them, and the communications hub remained blocked. "Tell the troops to establish a perimeter. We will wait them out." But the humans did not leave. They sat through the night. When some got tired, others took their place. A rotation system. They could maintain this forever. On the third day of occupation, Courtnax received his first desertion report. 3 soldiers from the sole contingent had abandoned their posts. "Why?" he demanded. "They claim they cannot, in good conscience, continue the occupation," his second officer explained. "They say the humans have done nothing to deserve this treatment. They say we are the aggressors and they want no part of it." "We are the aggressors," Courtnax roared. "This is a military operation. Moral considerations are not relevant." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Moral considerations were all that mattered now. The humans had made sure of that. Ambassador Ji-Hoon Park appeared in a broadcast that somehow reached beyond Earth's communication blackout. He sat in an undisclosed location, looking directly into the camera. "People of the Council," he said softly, "my world is occupied. Vaknoth soldiers stand in our cities. We have not fought them. We have not killed a single one of your people. We have chosen peace, even though peace means living under occupation." He paused, letting that sink in. "We ask you to look at what your council has done. We asked only to be left alone, to develop at our own pace, to choose our own path. In response, you sent armies, you sent warships. You decided our freedom was less important than your authority." Another pause. "We will not hate you for this. We will not become monsters to fight monsters. We will simply continue to live our lives, continue to treat even our occupiers with dignity, and trust that the galaxy will eventually see the truth." The broadcast ended. Within hours, it had spread across Council space. On Centauri Prime, protests erupted. The empathic species felt the weight of human suffering and could not bear the cognitive dissonance. On Vaknoth Prime, military families began questioning their sons and daughters. "Are we the heroes of this story?" they asked. "Or are we something else?" In the crystalline chamber of the hierarchy, Counselor Yishra watched the broadcast 3 times. Then she made a decision that would fracture the council forever. She called for an emergency vote to withdraw from Earth. 4 weeks into the occupation, Commander Zarel stood before the Galactic Council and delivered a report he never imagined giving. "Earth is technically under our control," he said slowly, "but we cannot govern it. We cannot extract compliance. We cannot achieve any objective beyond simple military presence." Thexkar's scales darkened with anger. "Explain this failure." "It is not a military failure," Zrel replied. "The humans have not fought us. Not once. That is precisely the problem." He activated a display showing footage from across Earth. In every city, life continued around the occupation as if the Vaknoth were simply part of the scenery. Humans went to work. Children played near checkpoints. Families ate meals within sight of armed soldiers. "They have made us invisible," Zrel explained. "They acknowledge our presence but give us no authority. When we issue orders, they comply in ways that make the orders impossible to enforce. When we demand resources, they provide them so publicly that we appear to be stealing from civilians. Every action we take becomes evidence against us. Counselor Brevin leaned forward, crystalline branches chiming softly. You have 50,000 soldiers. Surely you can compel obedience. From whom? Zrel asked bitterly. Should we shoot people for sitting in streets? Execute doctors for offering us food? Arrest children for playing near our positions? Every option for enforcement makes us look like the criminals we are. The word hung in the air. Criminals. Thexakar slammed a claw on his seat. We are not criminals. We are bringing order to a defiant species. That is what we tell ourselves, Counselor Yishra said quietly. She had been silent until now. But the humans are broadcasting a different story, one the galaxy is starting to believe. She activated her own display. News feeds from across Council space. On Centauri Prime, massive protests demanded immediate withdrawal. On Korthi, religious leaders questioned the morality of compliance operations. On 36 worlds, citizens were asking uncomfortable questions about Council authority. Ambassador Park's message reached beyond our information barriers, Yishra continued. His broadcast was viewed by 4 billion individuals across Council space. The response has been significant. Propaganda, Thexkar spat. Human lies designed to manipulate emotions. Is it lies? Yishra asked. Show me the lie in what they say. We invaded a world that asked only to be left alone. We occupied cities without provocation. We did this not because they attacked us, but because they refused to obey us. Where is the lie? Before Thexkar could respond, another broadcast appeared on their screens. This one was not Ambassador Park. A human woman stood in what appeared to be a hospital room. She wore a doctor's coat stained with blood. Beside her, lying in a medical bed, was a Vaknoth soldier. My name is Dr. Minji Okafor, she said to the camera. 3 hours ago, this soldier was injured in an equipment accident at a checkpoint in Lagos. His own medical staff could not reach him in time. My team brought him to our hospital. We performed surgery. We saved his life. The camera moved closer to the soldier's face. He looked young, despite being from a species that lived 5 times longer than humans. My name is Krev, the soldier said slowly. I came to this world to conquer it. These people owe me nothing. I am their enemy. Yet they saved my life. He looked directly into the camera. I do not understand these humans, but I know one thing with certainty. We are wrong. We are completely, utterly wrong to be here. The broadcast ended. In the council chamber, silence fell like a physical weight. This is one soldier's opinion, Thexakar said, but his voice lacked conviction. It means nothing. 63 soldiers have deserted, Zrel countered. 200 more have requested transfer off Earth. Morale is collapsing. My soldiers are trained warriors. They can handle combat. They can handle danger. But they cannot handle the guilt of occupying a population that treats them like guests instead of enemies. Counselor Yishra stood, her silver skin pulsing with emotion. I call for immediate vote. Full withdrawal from Earth. Public apology. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign entity with full rights to refuse Council membership. Seconded, said Counselor Brevin immediately. Thexkar looked around the chamber. For the first time in 3,000 years, he saw the hierarchy fracturing. Species that had always voted together now looked uncertain. We cannot retreat, he said desperately. If we withdraw, we show weakness. Every defiant species in the galaxy will refuse Council authority. The order we have built will collapse. Perhaps it should, Yishra said softly. If our order requires us to invade peaceful worlds, perhaps it deserves to collapse. The vote was called. The chamber divided evenly, 15 species for withdrawal, 15 against. It was the first tied vote in Council history. On Earth, Ambassador Ji-Hoon Park received word of the Council's deadlock. He sat in his hidden office, surrounded by data that would shock the galaxy if revealed. "Seo Jun," he said to his assistant, "release the files." "Are you certain? This will change everything." "That is the goal." Seo Jun activated the upload. Within minutes, every public network in Council space received the same data package. It was everything. Every Vacnoth position on Earth, every supply line, every communication protocol, every vulnerability in their occupation. But more importantly, it included analysis, human analysis, military analysis that showed, in excruciating detail, exactly how Earth could have made the occupation catastrophically expensive, recommended ambush points, supply disruption strategies, guerrilla tactics that would have turned every city into a nightmare. All documented, all ready to implement, all deliberately unused. Ji-hoon's message accompanied the data. To the people of the galaxy, we share this information not as a threat, but as proof. Earth understood the Vacnoth military completely. We identified every weakness. We could have resisted with violence. Many of you assumed we surrendered because we were helpless. This data proves otherwise. We chose non-violence not from weakness, but from strength. We chose to protect Vacnoth lives even as they occupied our world. We chose to maintain our humanity even when it would have been easier to become monsters. This is who humans are. This is what we believe civilization means. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to. We asked the Council a simple question. If you cannot defeat a species that refuses to hate you, what does that say about your kind of power? The data spread like fire across the galaxy. Military analysts confirmed its accuracy. The humans had known everything. They had possessed the capability to make the occupation a bloodbath, and they had chosen peace anyway. On Vacnoth Prime, military families watched the broadcasts in stunned silence. Their warriors had been shown mercy by the very people they came to conquer. On Centauri Prime, the protests grew to millions. The empathic species could feel the weight of human restraint. The deliberate choice to value Vacnoth lives even at the cost of their own freedom. On worlds throughout Council space, a single question echoed. What have we become? In the Council chamber, Thexkar watched his political legacy crumble. He had promised a quick compliance operation. Instead, he had triggered a crisis that threatened the entire Council structure. Councillor Yishra approached him privately after the session. "You did not understand them," she said. "I tried to warn you. Humans do not fight like other species because they do not think like other species." "What are they?" Thexkar asked, his voice hollow. "They are a mirror," Yishra replied. "They reflect back what you bring to them. You brought violence, and they showed you its moral cost. They forced you to see yourself clearly. That is a power we have never encountered. What do I do?" "You vote for withdrawal," Yishra said simply. "You acknowledge the truth, and you hope the Council can survive what comes next." The emergency session reconvened the following day. The vote was no longer tied. 27 species voted for immediate withdrawal. 3 abstained. Only 5 voted to continue. The occupation was over, not because Earth won militarily, but because the Council could not win morally. 6 weeks after the invasion began, Admiral Kortnak stood in the command center of his flagship and did something no Vacnoth officer had done in 1,000 years of military service. He admitted complete defeat, not military defeat. His forces still held every strategic position on Earth. His weapons remained superior. His soldiers could crush any human resistance with ease, but none of that mattered anymore. 60% of ground forces refused to enforce occupation directives, his second officer reported. They cite ethical violations. They request immediate reassignment. Kortnax looked at the data streaming across his screens. Desertion rates climbing daily. Morale reports showing psychological breakdowns among veteran soldiers. medical requests for trauma counseling increasing exponentially. His warriors were not being defeated by Earth. They were defeating themselves. The breaking point had come in Mumbai. The humans protecting the communications hub had been sitting peacefully for 39 days straight. Courtnax finally ordered his troops to disperse them by force. His soldiers refused. "Sir, we cannot follow that order," squad leader Vorn had said. "These people are unarmed. They are peaceful. Many are elderly. Some have children. We are warriors, not monsters." "You are soldiers," Courtnax roared. "You follow orders." "Not those orders," Vorn replied quietly. "Not anymore." The engineer leading the Mumbai protest was named Seo Yongupta. When Courtnax's troops surrounded the communications hub but refused to act, she had done something that haunted the Admiral even now. She smiled at them, a genuine warm smile. "Thank you," she had said, "for choosing compassion over orders. That takes real courage." Warriors who had faced plasma fire without flinching broke down crying at her words. They had come expecting enemies. They found people who thanked them for their mercy. The incident was broadcast across Earth and beyond. It became a symbol. The moment when the occupation truly failed. When human kindness proved stronger than military discipline. Courtnax received the withdrawal orders with something like relief. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. He understood victory and defeat. But Earth had taught him something new. There are some fights you cannot win because winning would destroy what you thought you were fighting for. As Vaknoth forces began evacuation procedures, Prime Minister Hyejin Kang requested a meeting with the Admiral. Against protocol, Courtnax agreed. They met in a simple office in Seoul. No weapons, no guards. Just two leaders who had found themselves in an impossible situation. "Why did you not fight?" Courtnax asked. The question had consumed him for weeks. "Your data proved you understood our military completely. You could have made us pay for every meter of your world." Hyejin poured tea with steady hands. "We could have. Many voices argued for exactly that. Our military wanted to fight. Our people wanted to defend their homes. So why surrender?" "Because fighting would have taught you nothing," Hyejin explained. "If we resisted with violence, you would have justified the invasion in your minds. You would have said, 'See how dangerous they are. See why we needed to control them.' Your casualties would have made you angry, not reflective. You would have learned only that humans were enemies to be crushed." She handed him a cup of tea. "Instead, we showed you who we are. We forced you to see yourselves clearly. When your soldiers asked themselves if they were heroes or villains, we made sure the answer was undeniable." Courtnax stared into the tea. "We are not villains. We believed we were bringing order to chaos." "All invaders believe that," Hyejin said gently. "That is why we could not fight you with weapons. We had to fight you with truth." "You cost me my career," Courtnax said. "The Council has relieved me of command. My name will be remembered as the Admiral who failed to conquer a primitive world." "No," Hyejin corrected. "Your name will be remembered as the Admiral who learned. That is a better legacy than conquest." The Admiral left Earth the next day. His fleet lifted off from a planet they had occupied but never truly controlled. As they departed, humans lined the streets. Not celebrating, not jeering, simply watching, bearing witness. In the council chamber, Councillor Thexkar faced the consequences of his failed strategy. 3 species had formally withdrawn from the council. 7 more threatened to follow. The political structure that had existed for millennia was collapsing. "We need to make an example," he argued desperately. "If we simply retreat from Earth, every species will think they can defy us." "They already think that," Councillor Yishra replied. "The Earth campaign proved that military power cannot compel moral legitimacy. We can conquer worlds, but we cannot make them believe we are right to do so." "Since when does that matter?" Thexkar demanded. Since always, Yishra said. We simply ignored it before. Earth made ignoring it impossible. The Mordani counselor looked around the chamber. Species that once feared him now looked at him with something close to pity. What do you propose? He asked, his voice hollow. Reformation? Yishra answered. Complete transformation of how the council operates. No more compliance operations. No more forced membership. Voluntary alliance based on mutual respect and shared values. That is not a council, Thexkar protested. That is chaos. No, Counselor Brevin interjected. That is civilization. Real civilization. What we had before was empire pretending to be something noble. The debate raged for days. In the end, the hierarchy faced a simple choice: transform or dissolve. 20 species voted for complete reformation. 8 voted to dissolve the council entirely. Only 4 voted to maintain the old structure. The Earth Accord was drafted. Ambassador Ji-hoon Park was invited to help write it. We do not want revenge, he told the assembled council. We want transformation. We want a galaxy where species cooperate because they choose to, not because they fear consequences for refusal. The Accord established new principles. Council membership became voluntary. Military intervention required unanimous consent. Moral considerations outweighed strategic ones. Compliance operations were formally banned. It was revolutionary. It was terrifying. It was necessary. On Earth, Dr. Minji Okafor received an unexpected visitor. Krev, the Vaknoth soldier she had saved, returned to Lagos. I am no longer in the military, he explained. I resigned. What I saw here changed me. I wanted to thank you personally. For what? Minji asked. I did what any doctor would do. No, Krev said firmly. Most doctors would have let their enemy bleed. You saw a person who needed help. That distinction saved more than my life. It saved my soul. He handed her a data chip. I have been documenting what happened here, interviewing other soldiers, recording our experiences. I want the galaxy to understand what Earth taught us. What did we teach you? Minji asked curiously. That strength is not about the capacity to harm, but the wisdom to heal. That civilization is measured not by who you can defeat, but by who you choose to save. Krev's documentary spread across council space. It became required viewing in Vaknoth military academies. An entire generation of warriors learned about the Earth campaign as a case study in strategic failure. Not tactical failure, moral failure. They had conquered without understanding. They had fought without considering whether they should. They had treated power as its own justification. Earth taught them different lessons. That empathy could be a weapon. That kindness could be a shield. That the weakest-looking species could transform the galaxy by refusing to become what invaded them. In the reformed council chamber, now redesigned to seat species as equals rather than in a hierarchy, Ambassador Ji-hoon Park addressed the assembly for the first time as a full member, rather than a supplicant. 6 months ago, you invaded my world, he said calmly. Today we sit as allies. This transformation did not happen because Earth won a war. It happened because we refused to fight one. He looked at each counselor in turn. The galaxy feared that human defiance would bring chaos. Instead, our resistance brought reflection. You feared that showing us mercy would make you appear weak. Instead, learning mercy made you stronger. Thexkar, no longer head of the hierarchy but still a counselor, spoke for the first time in weeks. You make it sound noble. We did not choose mercy. We chose retreat because we could not maintain the occupation. Yes, Ji-hoon agreed. Because we made the occupation morally untenable. That was the strategy. Not to defeat your military, but to defeat your justifications. Not to harm your soldiers, but to protect them from becoming monsters. You make us sound like children who needed teaching, Thexkar said bitterly. No, Ji-hoon replied gently. We made you look like the people you claim to be, civilized, moral, capable of growth. You taught yourselves. We simply held up the mirror. 6 months after the withdrawal, the Galactic Council chamber looked the same but felt completely different. The crystalline walls still caught the light from the pulsar. The seats still formed a circle, but the circle no longer represented hierarchy. It represented equals. Ambassador Ji-hoon Park stood at the center, not as a supplicant seeking membership, but as an invited speaker addressing allies. The Earth Accord represents a choice, he said to the assembled species, not just for how the Council operates, but for what civilization means. For 3,000 years, you defined civilization as order maintained through power. Earth proposes a different definition. Civilization as cooperation maintained through consent. Counselor Yishra listened with her empathic senses fully open. She felt the room's emotions, uncertainty from some species, hope from others. Lingering resentment from those who preferred the old ways, but mostly she felt something new, humility, a collective recognition that the galaxy had been running on assumptions that Earth had shattered. The vote on the Earth Accord will transform everything, Ji-hoon continued. Council membership becomes voluntary. Species can leave at any time. Military intervention requires unanimous consent, meaning any single species can veto action. This reduces the Council's power significantly. It eliminates our power, muttered Counselor Vrem. How can we maintain order if every species can simply refuse to participate? You maintain order by being worth participating in, Ji-hoon replied simply, by offering value instead of demanding compliance, by proving that cooperation serves everyone's interests better than coercion. The vote was called. The chamber divided, but not evenly. 73% voted in favor. The Earth Accord passed. The old hierarchy was officially dissolved. The new council emerged, fundamentally transformed. Former Commander Zrel requested a private meeting with Ambassador Park 3 days after the vote. They met in a quiet garden aboard the council station, surrounded by plants from 100 worlds. I need to understand something, Zrel said without preamble. Why did you not fight? You keep giving diplomatic answers. I want the real reason. Ji-hoon considered the question carefully. The diplomatic answers are real, but you want the deeper truth? Yes. We did not fight because fighting would have made us like you, Ji-hoon said. Not you personally, but like what the council represented, violence justifying itself through more violence, power proving itself through conquest. We looked at that cycle and decided to break it, even if breaking it meant accepting occupation. Zrel sat on a bench designed for species 3 times his size. You gambled your entire world on the belief that we would see ourselves clearly if you held up the mirror. Yes. What if we had not? Zrel asked. What if we simply continued the occupation indefinitely? Then we would have continued resisting non-violently indefinitely, Ji-hoon answered. And eventually, either you would have withdrawn, or you would have committed atrocities so severe that the entire galaxy would have turned against you. Either way, we believed the truth would win eventually. Eventually, Zrel repeated. People could have died while you waited for eventually. People definitely would have died if we fought, Ji-hoon countered. At least our way gave peace a chance. At least our way meant that if we did die, we died as ourselves. Not as monsters we had become to fight monsters. Zrel was quiet for a long time. I resigned my commission, he finally said. I can no longer serve a military that I watched become an occupation force, that I led into becoming an occupation force. You followed orders, Ji-hoon said. That is not an excuse. It has never been an excuse. Earth taught me that. Ji-hoon placed a hand on the former commander's shoulder. Earth also teaches that people can change, that acknowledging wrong is the first step toward becoming right. You learned. That matters. On Centauri Prime, the empathic species established the first Earth Cultural Center. Counselor Yishra herself oversaw its creation. The center taught human history, human philosophy, and most importantly, human approaches to conflict resolution. "Why are you doing this?" a young Centauri student asked her. "Humans are just one species. Why make them so important?" "Because they changed everything," Yishra explained. "Not through conquest, not through technology, but through moral courage. They showed the galaxy that there are strengths we had never valued, strengths that matter more than weapons." The student looked skeptical. "Like what?" "Like the strength to face an enemy and refuse to hate them. Like the strength to endure occupation without losing yourself. Like the strength to protect even those who harm you, because protecting them is who you choose to be." Yishra pulled up footage from Earth during the occupation. Dr. Minji Okafor saving Krev's life. Seoyon Gupta thanking soldiers for choosing compassion. Millions of humans maintaining dignity under impossible circumstances. "This is power," Yishra said. "Power the Council never understood, because we measured strength only by capacity for destruction. Earth measures strength by capacity for creation, for protection, for transformation." The student watched the footage in silence. "We invaded them," she said quietly, "and they forgave us." "More than that," Yishra corrected. "They invited us to become better than we were. That is the lesson Earth teaches." On Vaknoth Prime, Krev's documentary had become part of standard military education. New recruits watched footage of the occupation, analyzed the strategic decisions, and discussed the moral implications. Krev himself often lectured at the military academy. He stood before rooms full of young warriors and told them uncomfortable truths. "I was trained to fight enemies," he said. "I was not trained to face people who refused to be enemies. When Dr. Okafor saved my life, she destroyed every justification I had built for being on her world. She showed me that I was not a warrior bringing order. I was an invader causing harm." A student raised his hand. "But we had superior military force. We could have compelled their obedience." "Could we?" Krev asked. "We held every strategic position. We controlled every major city. And yet, we could not govern them. We could not extract compliance, because power is not just about capacity to destroy. It is about legitimacy. And on Earth we had none." He pulled up the image of Seoyon Gupta smiling at soldiers who refused to disperse her peaceful protest. "This human thanked our soldiers for showing compassion. She transformed potential enemies into allies by recognizing their humanity. That is a power we never trained to counter. That is a power I hope we learn to emulate instead of fight." The military academy began teaching courses on non-violent resistance, on moral considerations in warfare, on the limits of power. The Vaknoth military was transforming, slowly, into something that valued wisdom as much as strength. 1 year after the invasion, Earth formally joined the Galactic Council under the terms of the Earth Accord. Prime Minister Hye-Jin Kang stood before the Assembly to deliver Earth's first official address as a member species. "We join you not as subjects, but as equals," she said. "We join you not because we fear consequences for refusing, but because we believe in cooperation. We join you to build something better than what existed before." She looked at Thexkar, who sat quietly in his seat, no longer leading, but still present. "Counselor Thexkar once told me that humanity needed guidance and structure. He was partially right. All species need cooperation and community. But those things cannot be imposed. They must be chosen." Thexkar met her eyes and nodded slowly. It was as close to an apology as his pride would allow. The Council's first act under the new accord was to formally ban compliance operations galaxy-wide. The second act was to establish protocols for peaceful conflict resolution. The third was to invite species previously conquered under compliance operations to petition for reparations. The old order was truly dead. The new order was being born. On Earth, in a small school in Lagos, Dr. Minji Okafor spoke to a classroom of children, both human and Vaknoth children, part of a cultural exchange program. "Why did you help the soldier who invaded your planet?" a young human girl asked. "My parents say we should have fought them." "Because he was hurt," Minji explained. "And I am a doctor. The oath I took does not have exceptions for enemies. It says I will do no harm, and that I will help those who need help." A young Vaknoth boy raised his hand. "My father says you saved Krev's life, even though he came to hurt your people." "Why?" "Because Krev was not my enemy," Minji said gently. "He thought he was, but I saw a young person following orders far from home, doing what he believed was right. When he was hurt, I saw someone who needed help. That is all." The children sat quietly, processing this. "The galaxy is changing," Minji continued. "It is learning what Earth has always known, that we are stronger together than apart, that protecting each other, even across species, even across conflicts, is what civilization really means." She looked at the human and Vaknoth children sitting together, learning together. "You are the generation that will never know the old ways. You will grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is valued more than conquest, where different species learn from each other instead of dominating each other. That is the world we fought for. That is the world we protected by refusing to fight." Outside the school, Vaknoth and human parents waited together to pick up their children. They chatted about ordinary things: weather, traffic, their children's progress in school. A year ago, such a scene would have been impossible. Now it was normal, unremarkable, the new reality. Ambassador Ji-hoon Park watched the scene from his office window. Seo Jun-chen stood beside him. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "The transformation?" "Nothing lasts forever," Ji-hoon replied. "But we planted seeds, showed the galaxy a different way. Whether it grows depends on choices every species makes, every day." "Was it worth it?" Seo Jun asked. "The occupation? The risk? Everything we endured?" Ji-hoon watched a human child and a Vaknoth child leave the school together, laughing about something only children would find funny. "Yes," he said simply. "It was worth it." The council's complacency had been shattered. In its place grew something fragile but genuine: hope, understanding, the recognition that the galaxy's greatest strength was not in its weapons, but in its capacity for change. Earth had not conquered, Earth had transformed, and the galaxy would never be the same.